Hello and welcome to another session of AVR120. Today we're going to be going over raycasting and how we can use raycast to detect objects in the environment and do things to them. A raycast is a straight line from one designated point to another. We can use this in conjunction with colliders on a game object to interpret the collision and then do something in the code. In this case, we are going to have a raycast that comes from our camera, all right? And then we're going to use this this crate here, and we will essentially set up a situation where the raycast is being shot from the camera to the barrel object here. We will subtract, the barrel will have like a health variable. We'll subtract health from that on essentially each shot from our gun, and then we'll go ahead and destroy the game object there. So essentially, the raycast works by colliding with an object, and so we're going to. It's a type of physics interaction. So we're going to be using the physics.raycast method, which is a built-in Unity method, to go ahead and shoot a raycast from our camera to an object, and then subtract some health from that object there. So we'll go ahead and I just wanted to show you this physics.raycast. This here will go ahead and um, we'll be using this raycast method. It takes a vector3 origin, a direction. Okay, so this is where the ray starts from. The direction, obviously, of the ray of where the ray is heading. The distance, essentially, the max range of that ray. And then if there is a specific layer mask, it can take that as well. So we kind of adjusted that in one of the last sessions there where we were pushing an object, right? If it's an interactable object, we had it on that interactable layer mask there. And then this is specifically for on trigger interactions there. So there is a on trigger field that colliders have, which essentially sets up a on trigger, essentially sets up an interaction. So the physics won't apply to the collider, but if our collider or a collider intersects that we determine through code, and it intersects with that object's collider when it is set as a trigger, it will do something. So we're not going to do that in this lesson here, but that is an option to set up on this. And you can see here it's on this is a trigger, and so if we mouse over it, it says if enabled, this collider is used for triggering events and is ignored by the physics engine. So in this case, we need the physics engine. We want to use the physics engine. So we're not going to set this as a trigger in our case here. So we will be using the Sci-Fi Asset Pack weapons pack here. You can find it at this URL. So devassets.com/assets/sci-fi weapons. Um, and that will take you to these weapons here. So again, same concept. You can just set this to 0 and then grab it for free and download it. I believe I already have these downloaded here, so I'll go ahead and bring that up. So my downloaded assets, I have the sci-fi weapons here. So if I click into that, I can just go ahead and double click this sci-fi weapons Unity package. I'll click import, and we'll get those into the scene now. So if we see down here the sci-fi weapons, we'll want to click into this, open it up, click into base pack, and we'll see a prefabs folder. And I am just going to use the rifle for now. And so I'm just going to drag this into the scene onto my player. I'll double click that to kind of see where it is. It looks like it's inside the cylinder, so I'll just pull it out a little bit like so. And I can take this game view here and I can kind of use it to determine where I want to place the gun. So I'll move it up until it's in the camera, and then I'll kind of move it to the side here, and I'll move it, kind of move it back here, and you can see how it kind of clips here, like so. I can actually go to my camera and adjust the clipping planes, and I'll set this to like 0.1, and you'll see that it won't clip anymore there. And that adjusts essentially how close an object can get to the camera before it essentially kind of isn't rendered. So we'll go ahead here, and when we have the gun kind of where we want it, so I like the position of this. This looks pretty good to me. Maybe I'll adjust it just a tad to the right here, go back to the game. So that looks pretty good. And now I'm going to go ahead and create a script on the gun here. So we'll go ahead with the rifle selected in the hierarchy, go to Add Component, New Script, and we will call this gun. Okay, so if it doesn't pop up for you, just double click the gun here, and then we'll go ahead and we're going to want to create a couple variables. So we'll need a public float damage variable. We'll set that equal to like 10. And then we'll do a public float range variable, and we'll set that equal to 100. And I'm just going to comment this as we go. So this is range at which gun no longer does damage. And I want a reference to my camera as well. So I'll go ahead and create a public camera variable called FPS cam. And we'll go ahead and create a, we're not going to use update justice yet, but we're going to create a method called shoot. And this is where we will do our raycast, okay? So we'll go ahead and you need first a raycast hit variable, and we'll call this hit. And if we mouse over it, it says structure used to get information back from a raycast. So this will give us information essentially on the object that we hit with our raycast, which again is coming from our camera. And we'll be using the kind of forward ray from the camera here. So we're going to call physics, all right, the Unity's built-in physics engine class. We'll call the raycast method off of that, and we'll see that the raycast method takes origin, direction, hit info, max distance, and layer. So we'll go ahead and start writing that here. So we're going to start it from the first person's camera. We're going to start it from its transform dot position. So the position of that camera in the 3D space. We're going to need to give it a direction now. So what we're going to go ahead and do is, like I said, we are going to be shooting a ray from the forward position of that camera. So we will be calling FPS cam dot transform dot forward, like so. And that returns the blue axis of the transform in world space, right? We're also going to now return the hit variable, which we just created there. And essentially, what we're doing here is when it hits the object, we can use this variable to return data. And then eventually we're going to use that to subtract health from our object there. And then we're going to go ahead and use our range variable, which we created. just to give us like a max range for that raycast before it doesn't raycast anymore. And so we'll go ahead and, oops, sorry. And we're going to want to put this in an if statement here, okay? So we'll go ahead and put it in an if statement. And we will essentially just for the moment return a debug.log, okay? So I just wanted to go over this quick too. Debug.log logs a message in the Unity's console, right? That's what it says there. So it's very similar to console.writeline in C#. It in the sense that console.writeline prints to screen, but debug.log is what you would essentially use to debug your code. You can use this anywhere in your code, and it will print to the screen. So if you want to say check if you're getting inside of a method, or check what the value of a variable is, or like a Boolean or something like that, you can log it out inside of these parentheses in the debug.log. This phrase here. So we'll go ahead and put in the hit.transform.name. And before that, I'll say something like we hit, and this will print out essentially we're getting the so we're from the raycast, right? So we're shooting a ray from the camera's starting position. We're shooting it out the forward vector of the camera. We're storing whatever we hit essentially in this variable, this hit variable here, and this is the max range. And so we're going to print whatever we hit, okay? We're going to print to the console that we hit, and it's going to hit the game object. It's going to return the game object's name that we hit. Okay? So if we go ahead and save this now, and oh yeah, we need to call this in update as well. Okay? So we'll go ahead and just call shoot here. Now this is going to run every frame. So we're just going to do this for testing purposes, but we're going to save everything here. And we're going to need to create a we'll have to do some more adjustment to this for now, but let's go ahead and go back into the game now. And we'll kind of have the console up while we play it. I'm going to play in focus so it doesn't, so we can actually see the console. And we'll go ahead and start. Oh, and I forgot to assign the variable. You'll see that I'm getting a million errors. So I'll go ahead and go back to rifle, and I need to drag in the camera reference that we established. So we'll go ahead and do that now. And now if I run this, we'll see that it is hitting the desert. And then if I'm kind of on the crate, it's hitting the crate there. And if I'm on the building, it's hitting the house. Okay. Large rock, right? So everything with a collider here, you can see that it's hitting and it's giving us the name of what we're hitting. Now this is kind of doing it every frame. So we don't want to do this every frame. We want to kind of gate it there. I also don't really like how the gun is, so I'm just going to go ahead and pull it back now a little bit here. And we'll go back and I'll actually probably bump up the clipping frame a few frames here, maybe like 2. And just kind of move this over, move it back a little bit more. And actually, I'm going to put this back to 1, sorry. Okay. Oh, well, it's not going to save it because I'm playing it, so go ahead and do that. Okay. So now that we've set up the raycasting here, we need to go ahead and we need to assign it to an input. So in order to do that, we need to go back to the gun code here, and we need to wrap this shoot statement in an if check that is based on our player's input. So we'll go input dot and we're gonna want to use the I'm gonna set it to the left mouse click, so we'll go ahead and do get mouse button down, and I will set this to 0, and I will take this shoot and I will put it inside of this here. And so now if we go back into Unity, click save, and we run it, we'll see that it doesn't run every frame. But if I click it, okay, it hits the object that I'm hitting. Now, I actually need to parent this rifle to the camera, and that's because I want the rifle to move with wherever I'm facing the camera. Yeah, there we go. Because we don't want it to just like be floating in space. I want to be able to move it with the camera there. So just make sure that you've parented the rifle to the camera. Okay. Now, we've went ahead and set that up so that on left mouse click it shoots a raycast. But now I'm having a hard time seeing like where where I'm kind of shooting that raycast from. So I'm going to go ahead and create like a crosshair on my screen. So this is the first time we've kind of been using we've used the UI functionality here. So we'll go ahead and it's a little bit of a different workflow. So we'll go ahead and we will right click in the hierarchy and we'll go ahead and go to UI and we will go to image. And you'll see here that we'll have this big blank white screen in the middle. And we've got this canvas object. So if we go to scene view and we double click on the canvas, it's huge. It's like bigger than the game environment. And so this is how the UI functions here. This is supposed to represent the entirety of your viewport, your camera's viewport here. So I'll go ahead and I'll set this to 2D because we're going to be UI is 2D. So we're predominantly working in 2D there. And we have this image in the middle. Okay, so what we want to do here is we want to set this image to a sprite. So what we'll go ahead and do is we can, basically just search for a target. So we'll go ahead and find a target online here that we can use. I just searched target.png and I clicked this first one here and then I downloaded it and I threw it into my assets folder and then just dragged it into Unity. So go ahead and I'll show you. I have my downloaded assets folder here, and then I'm going to drag it into Unity like so. And I will click on this now, and we have to do some adjustment here. So we'll go ahead and set this to 2D sprite and UI. And you'll see that it's not transparent, but if I click on sprite mode and I set it to single, and then I go ahead and I click apply, we'll see that I have this kind of transparent target that I can use. So if we return back to the canvas now, and the image. One thing you'll notice about UI, so sorry, I just double clicked in the image and that zoomed all the way in. So I don't really want to do that. I want to zoom way out here. But what you notice about UI is one thing is that you need to go ahead and adjust these little anchor points. And what these anchor points do is make it so the UI can fit to a variety of different screen resolutions, and be standardized. If you try to like move the image like this, or with the direct transform, you're going to run into kind of weird behavior and scaling issues with the UI that you wouldn't normally expect there. So instead, just go ahead and grab these little handles here. And oh, sorry, it's probably going to be in the this rec transform, so the quick key T. What I like to do is just like, click the W quick key to like set it to the move option. It makes it a little bit easier to grab these. You can kind of zoom in and then just you want to left click and grab the little actual triangle itself. Each triangle is movable, so you'll grab one here, you'll grab the other one, and just kind of set it to the width and length that you want. The image is kind of a square already, so I'm just going to use that length and width. That looks like it's right in the middle of the screen. And I can basically take this source image, I'm going to drag in my target. And now we can see we have this target in the middle of the screen here. And if we go ahead and click back into the game, we now have a target UI here. So maybe I want to make this a little bit smaller. So I'm going to kind of select these triangles again, or these little triangles again here, set a little bit smaller. And I'm actually going to go ahead up to here, and you need to zero these out. So the left needs to be zero, the top, the position Z, the right, and the bottom. And that will adjust the image to within the triangles there. And if we go back to the game, that looks a little bit better. And now I have a nice little crosshair on the screen so that I can kind of see where I'm pointing my gun at. And if we go ahead and go to the console, we'll see that when I left click, I hit the desert and the wooden crates. It detects everything correctly. The raycast is working. So the last thing we're going to go ahead and do now is to set it up where um, the we're going to go ahead and set it up where the crate takes damage now. So we'll go ahead and locate the crate object here. So I put this in environment, objects, and wooden crate. Double click that, and we'll go to the scene view. If we double click the crate, it will take us right there. We're still in 2D mode, so we need to click 2D mode, and we'll go back to the 3D mode here. And I'm going to want to put once I've selected the crate here, I want to put another script on it. So I'm going to click add component. I'm going to create a new script, and I'm going to call this target. And then I'm going to go ahead and create an add. And so now that we've done that there, I'm going to double click this target. And we now have, we're now inside the target script here. So we'll go ahead and start working on this. So we'll go ahead and delete this start. And I'm going to go ahead and create a public float variable and call it health and set that equal to 50. And then we're going to create a take damage variable, or take damage method, excuse me. So we need it to be public because we need to have our other gun script to be able to access the script on this object here, okay? And it's not going to return anything, and we're going to call this take damage. And take damage we'll be given an amount parameter, and that is what we will use to do a few things here. So the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to take the health and we're going to subtract the amount each time it detects a raycast there. Every time this method is called. Okay, so we'll just say subtract amount from health each time method is run. Then we'll go ahead and say if the health variable is less than or equal to 0, okay, then we want to call the die. We'll call a method called die. And so let's go ahead and create that method now. And this method will basically just be a simple void, and we'll call it die. And it will be a simple method that will basically just destroy the game object. And so we're selecting game object, removes a game object component or access, and it needs an object here. And if we just select game component, that's the or game object, excuse me, that's the object that this script is on. And so we'll need to call this. Right now it's dimmed out because we haven't called that method. So we'll come up here and call the die method. Okay, so we have a method called take damage on this object that calls a die method. Once the health is below or equal to 0, and each time this method is called, we subtract the amount of damage from the target's health, and then we destroy it. So we'll go ahead and we will now add some functionality to the gun script. So let's switch back over to the gun script here now. And we're going to go ahead and add this in to our raycast method here. So we'll keep our debug.log, and then we're going to call we're going to basically use the raycast to get a component or get the target script off of the crate game object that we just created and put on the crate. So to do that, we need to call the target. We'll create a target type variable. So we just created this target script, right? So we have this data type now. So we target, we'll just call it lowercase target, and we will set that equal to the hit. Remember, the raycast hit variable returns data from the raycast, so we'll set it equal to hit dot transform. So we're getting the transform of the object that we hit, and then we're getting a component off the object. And remember, everything is a component on a game object. And so the script that we just created on the crate, the target script, is a component on that game object. And so we are getting that target script. And we're setting it equal to this target variable we just declared. And then basically we're going to run a check on that using that. We're going to say if target is not equal to null, so if it has the target script on the game object, okay, we are going to access that script, all right, via that variable that we just declared. So via this variable, we'll say target dot, and we have with that variable, okay, on that game object, right, we have the target script. And so we have everything that's inside of that target script. And if we go back to the target script, we have the take damage method. So what we'll go ahead and do is we'll say if the target is not equal to null, if we hit the target with our raycast, we are going to call its take damage method. So you see here that if I do the dot notation and I start typing in take, um, sorry, the method pops up there. That's the method we just created. So we'll go ahead and call that take damage method. And we're getting an error because we need to pass it a value, okay? And so what we're going to do is we're going to pass it our damage value up here, okay? So again, just to reiterate, um, let's go through the script here. So if I press my left mouse button down, okay, I'm going to call the shoot method. When I call the shoot method, I'm going to declare a raycast hit type variable, okay, which returns data whenever my raycast hits something with a collider. So I'll say if my raycast, which is coming from my camera as the starting position, it's using this forward transform of the camera. It's going to return whatever I hit, okay? And it's going to do it at a maximum range of 100. If I do that raycast, I want to, and it hits something, I want to return the name of what I've hit, okay? Then I want to go ahead and get this target this target component off of the object, which is this script here, okay? Get the target component off of the object, okay? And then if that target is not equal to null, so if it has this target script on there, I want to call the target.takeDamage method and give it the damage variable which I've defined on this gun script here. And if we scroll back here, we're calling this method, and we can do this because from another script because we've made it public. So we can call this method here. We give it the damage, which will replace which will be set in the value of this amount, and then we can subtract that damage from the gun. Okay, so we can take the health of the object and subtract the damage from the gun from the object's health, from this crate's health, and then call this die method here. So if we save everything, we go back into the editor, save everything. So again, we are shooting a raycast from the player, from this camera. If it hits the crate, okay, it's going to find this script. It's going to see that it has 50 health, and I'm going to take, if we go back to the gun, it's going to apply that damage, okay, and it's going to subtract it from this health field here. And then when it gets to 0, it's going to delete the game object. So we'll go ahead and let's just make sure all of our references are set up. Looks like everything's good. And so we'll go ahead and play the game now. And see, left click works. When I do the tree, it works. And if I do the box, we'll see I did it like 5 times, and at 10 damage a pop, it deleted the box. So again, that's pretty much how you would get, that's one way to get scripts to talk to each other, is to get those components, get that script off the game object, and then use it to pass data back and forth there, like so. So we're passing that damage to the wooden crates take damage method, the targets take damage method, and and that damage will be subtracted from the health until it hits 0, where it destroys the game object. Okay, so a little bit lengthier session today. Let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day.